What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to Risky Ryan Trades. Thank you for joining me. Today is going to be our weekly recap video where we are going to go over what happened last week, what could possibly happen next week, what's upcoming as far as earnings. We're going to look at different sectors, how they've been performing, and my predictions. We're going to go over the Mag 7, other major stocks and indexes. So this is going to be a very informative video. I'm going to try to power through and get as much information to you guys as possible. But before I do, if you would please smash that like button. It helps with the algorithm, all that good stuff. And if you would please hit subscribe if you've watched a few of my videos. I'm trying to grow this YouTube channel. And if you'd rather wait to see if you get value out of the video, fair enough. But before we dive in, here's my disclaimer. Trading is risky. None of this is financial advice, simply my observations. So hopefully you do learn something, and hopefully this helps. Without further ado, let's dive right in. So right now I have the 1 week performance. I'm going to start with the S&P 500. You can see all the big names were having a bad week last week. And if you follow the markets, you probably know that. So big names like MasterCard, Visa, NVDA, pretty much the whole Mag 7, Costco, Walmart, Eli Lilly, Verizon, Disney, even Booking Holdings, down 6.7%. So if you look at all these indexes, you can see the biggest names are taking the biggest hits. Now, one of the trends that got bucked is the industrials, which we will get to, but you can see that GE, Raytheon, even Boeing, Lockheed Martin, aerospace is doing really well right now. And you'll also see down here in the financial areas, we have some bright spots as well. Looking at the ETFs, you know, last week was a rough one in the market. S&P took a big hit, NASDAQ took a big hit. But if you look at the 1 week performance, it doesn't look, you know, it paints a different story. Now, obviously, you've got technology getting hit hard, semiconductors getting hit hard, growth, large cap growth getting hit hard, consumer discretionary getting hit, but a lot of these other areas look really solid. First and foremost, US small caps. Small caps doing great, mid caps doing mid, value holding up. One thing I want to direct your attention to, though, is biotech and regional banking. These two sectors of the economy fall within the small cap bucket. And you can see here on my bar chart, I have the S&P 500, which is this low one here. In the blue, I have the equal weight S&P 500, which is holding up stronger. And this is a 1 month chart. So about a month ago, you could see this big divergence. In orange, I have the Russell 2000 IWM. And in purple, purple, I have regional banks. Regional banks, I don't know if they are the strongest, but they're one of, if not the strongest, since the big rotation that we experienced. And so what we have been seeing over the last week is profit taking on the big names, rotating into the rest of the market. So the thumbnail on this video says bouncing, and I do believe that at least in the near term, potentially we may have hit the bottom on the S&P 500. But what we're seeing, you know, like that means that this bull market is not over, but we are seeing a rotation into the names that haven't gotten as much love for the first half of the year, and that Wall Street is expecting to play a little game of catch up. And so they're taking profits out of their big winners and moving it into the rest of the market. So we are going to dive deep into certain sectors, look at some charts of what I believe is going to be strong going forward for the next quarter. So before we do, I want to take a look at some of the earnings that happened this week. You can go to my previous videos to look at some of the major names. We all know what happened with Tesla, what happened with, what was the other big one? Google. Obviously, Google got they had a rough time. But I want to take a look at 3M because that happened before the open on Friday. So let's start with 3M. Holy cow, right? Big candle, and it closed. These are weekly candles, and it closed right below the Gann angle. So me personally, I would not be entering a long position until I saw a follow through. And I would fully expect, seeing as we've pushed through here, and we closed right at the top of this price action zone. You can see there was resistance here prior. I would suspect we're going to see some more resistance at the 135 level, maybe 130. I would like to see some candles close above this angle with lower wicks rejecting off this angle. That would indicate to me that we're going to push into the arc. But I do have my eyes on the industrial sector going forward. I do believe that this quarter it could get some love, and one of the Trump trades is industrials doing well, and so we could see strong industrials through the second half of the year. So we're going to be keeping our eye on this as well. Before we jump into any other earnings, let's go through the SPY, NASDAQ, etc., and take a view of the overall market. So what I have here is the weekly candlesticks, and this cloud down here and these two moving averages is the Ichimoku, Japanese indicator. And you could see that we rejected off the Tenkan-sen, which is this top moving average, and closed above it this week, which is a good thing. Also, we are within our Fibonacci channel. So I do not see some big crash, like major crash, in the near future. I do see some, call it indecision or choppiness. You might see pops and drops, but I think that we will stay within this channel. And if we go to the daily and get a little closer, you can see that we closed, we came down to the cloud, closed above it, and we also hit the top of this gap and bounced up. And so what I kind of expect to happen over the next week is a continuation up to the moving averages and then potentially another move lower. And we could see a double bottom here. We could see another retest of the cloud. But I don't see a full breakdown coming. This 525 level, which I thought was going to be, an area we may go to, I'm not really entirely convinced that that is going to happen, especially since earnings have been strong. Even Google's earnings were really strong. They just didn't like they didn't like the answer to one of the questions about AI spending. So I do not believe that we are going to see more drama in the near future, but I do suspect that we're going to see not quite as strong of an uptrend as we've seen. We might see just a little bit of floundering into September, which eventually pushes us up. And actually, if we go to the weekly, on the weekly candles, what we could see is, a little push higher and then a little push lower, a rejection off the arc, and we may like double bottom, in September or something. We could hit here again before. There's always a Santa Claus rally at the last quarter, almost always. So we could see, a push. But I do suspect we stay within this arc. And even if next week we dropped all the way to the bottom of the arc, we're at like 518. I don't suspect that would happen. We'd probably find some resistance here at 525, where the Kijun-sen and the top of this last cycle, before the softness we saw in April, I suspect that would be the next low. But I do not think we're really going to get there, especially since in the second half of next week, we're going to see some corporate buybacks kicking back in because we have been in a blackout zone. And so we've had retail and we've had the institutions holding up the stock market, but corporate buybacks, these companies will buy shares back from themselves. that we've been in a blackout period. They've been unable to buy those shares. And so when that happens, there's less buying pressure in the markets, naturally. So I do feel that we're going to see a bit of a bounce this week. Are we going to fully recover? Almost certainly not. I really don't think this week we're just going to get a candle that blasts us into the arc. That would be cool, but I just don't think it can happen. Now the monthly candles close on Wednesday, so if we go to the monthlies, that's just a big old doji candle, which is a reversal candle. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really see like big ugly candles in our future. But I could be wrong. Could be wrong. And the Qs is a little bit of a different animal. You can see on the monthly, we have a little bit of a rejection off this angle here. But we are still, the bottom of this 450. I still say 450 is pretty much probably the bottom to expect on the NASDAQ. Go to the weekly chart. So we did close under Tenkan-sen, found some support on Kijun-sen. We do have increasing selling volume. And yeah, we did reject off this angle. So we could be heading back to the bottom of the fib, which is 450. So yeah, I kind of do suspect 450 might be in the future for the NASDAQ over the next month, maybe week. The Russell, on the other hand, this is your your downside is at this level right here, and this broke with strength, and this week closed really strong for the Russell. I would be absolutely shocked if this were to somehow come back down to 211. So, let's just take a look at, what if that were to happen? I do think that there's a strong support level here. You got a 5% drop potential on the Russell. And in my opinion, dude, we're speed racing up to 268. I mean, I don't know that we're really going to just, like that 3M candle. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do not believe we're going to see us come back down to this level. And, if we look here, if we get up over this, which you can see over here was a strong, 227. Yeah, like 227 is a big line, which I'm going to set. That's a big one. After that, you got 233, 50, and then you have the previous high at 244. And so if we were to make it to that top line, that's 10%. And if we were to make it to this next GAN level, we're talking 20%. Obviously, small caps have been very, very, very strong. And I do want to show you the regional banks. And I'm actually going to take this to a monthly chart, because I want you to see just how high this still could go. Here's the top of our candle. We're not quite out of the monthly cloud, but I would suspect, we're probably going to hit some resistance at the top of this cloud, especially since there was all this, going on here. But if we can break the 2023 high, that's 32% from here. 32%. The bottom of the cloud is 10%. That's a 3-to-1 risk ratio. Disclaimer, I do have a position. I actually have a position in the directional. I feel very strongly about this one. So it's the 3 shares. You can see, if we were to make it back up to those all-time highs, we're talking, what are we talking about? 1,400% if we were to get back up to that. So obviously that's crazy. Actually, I want to go back because this goes back further, KRE. Okay, yeah. So obviously KRE moves a little bit differently than the directional. So, and the directional is based on KRE more or less. So I would not expect us to get to those highs, but you know, if we were able to get back up to, you know, the 3 times, so you know, if we were able to get here, that's 100% gain. Trading is risky. Remember my disclaimer, but these regional banks are looking fantastic right now, and I do think that once we actually get confirmation of a rate cut, which could come in a few days, it's unlikely, but it's possible. And if we get one in September, prepare to see regional banks make all-time highs, like new all-time highs. It's been years. You know, this is in 2021, 2022. So we could see a full recovery of the regional banks, which would push that Russell higher. And while we're at it, let's take a look at XBI. Yeah, so, you know, if the XBI can get back up to all-time highs, that's 72% from. So those are some sectors that I do have my eyes on. I think next week I will be making a position. You know, if we can clear over this 103 area, let's draw that off. 103, and that would probably push us into the cloud where we would find some support. So I would actually, you know, 103 to 110, I would want to see what it does. If we have strong price action, I may just hop in. But I would suspect that we get up over that, hit the cloud, come back to retest the 103 area. And if that goes well, I would consider entering a long position into this. And this is the monthly. So actually, let's go to the weekly here. So on the weekly, we do have a really strong Ichimoku. So we did get confirmation a couple weeks ago. The cloud went bullish. You had the Tenkan-sen cross back over the Kijun-sen. And we do have Chikou span over price. So yeah, I like what I'm seeing in biotech. Normally, this is a pretty tough place to invest. Yeah, look at this. That is a bullish pattern. You can see right here, we did something like that and pushed up. So yeah, I do like what I'm seeing here with biotech. So I'm going to be looking for a weekly candle close over this 103 level. That's probably what to look out for. Probably on the daily, we might see a candle get over, a candle close under, but if a weekly candle can close over this 104, what is it exactly? 104, biotech is going to be looking really good in the coming quarter if we can get some confirmation over there. So I like what I'm seeing with that. Take a look at semiconductors. Semiconductors closing at the bottom of the cloud, sitting right on this 240 level that I drew. Could there be more pain in the semiconductor space? Absolutely, there can be some more pain. That's actually what I think is going to end up dragging the NASDAQ down while the SPY manages to stay at its levels. So semiconductors, I'm not quite ready to jump back in. We might be at the bottom for the future. So like the next week, we might see, you know, like we did find support at the bottom of the cloud 2 days in a row. So we might push back up and then hit our head on the Kijun-sen on this 255 level and then come back to retest either the bottom of the cloud or this 240 area. So I think there's going to be a bounce and then another downtrend, which might double bottom us. So we might be at the end of the pain, but at the same time, we do have this GAN level, which we could come back to retest at 225. So I'm going to be waiting to see really how this holds up. And let's take a look at, that's a daily chart. Let's take a look at the weekly. Weekly rejected off of Kijun-sen and closed right here at the 240. But we do have increasing selling pressure volume, so we could see another retest of this 233 level this week just to confirm if this really is support. That's almost what will most likely happen. You might see us pop up to like 245, maybe 250. Well, probably this right here, probably 247, and then the candle will go lower. Very rarely do you get candles like this where there's very small wicks or no wicks. So early in the week, I would suspect a small relief and then a retest of this support. And while we're looking at technology, let's just, yeah, so we closed, the weekly candle closed under Hankinson. So I would, if you're not out of this yet or reducing yet, I would be reducing this because we'll almost certainly come down to, and this is on VGT, we'll come down to Kijinson, which is at 543. And if you're an XLK guy, which I don't know why you are, because VGT is better. I have videos on that. Yeah, so yeah, you can see XLK is actually weaker. It's you know, close, much closer to the Kijinson with increasing. So yeah, technology, that's not a buy. All right, let's go over the Mag 7 together, shall we? NVIDIA closing under Hankinson. Probably going to come down to Kijinson and this GAN angle next week. And if it does, that would be what I would suspect would be the bottom, and that's $102. That would be peak fear if you know, this company were to hit $102 or wick below $100 for a moment. People would start freaking out, and that would be a time to pick up more share. I probably will pick up a few more shares if this were to hit $102, $103, because you do have weekly support of the Kijinson here, and you do have this GAN angle down here as well. So I like that. I really actually probably, I really do think we'll probably hit that angle and then maybe stay within this GAN level and this until we get to earnings, which is all the way in August, end of August. Tesla closing below the weekly cloud, but above Hankinson and just above the arc. So I found some support at the arc. There is a downtrend line. I don't have this drawn on this one, but it sits around 225. And if we go to the hourly, you can see 225, 220, yeah, right around there. It tried to get above it, couldn't, and it closed above this angle or this arc here. But yeah, you can see multiple times 225, 225, 225. So that is the key level to watch with Tesla. If it can break through 225, and it will probably come up, retest it. At that point, you may see a gap fill up to 236 and maybe an attempt up to 245. However, the way the earnings call went, I don't see any positive catalysts that are really going to push us up there. And so what could happen is we could end up closing, see if any of these dailies closed under here. So we could end up closing under the arc again. You could see it fall to 200, really. Even if it doesn't fall out of the arc, we still could come down to this angle later in September, and we, you know, or mid-August, late August, get down to these 200 levels before finding support again. So, yeah, it just fell off a cliff, you guys. I would not be entering a new long position in Tesla. And, you know, if this happened to you overnight, you know, I'm sorry that happened to you. That sucks. So it's almost too late to reduce your position at this point. If I were holding through all this, I'd probably just hold my shares, and especially since most Tesla holders have a long-term outlook on the stock. Apple. Does Apple have earnings next week? Apple has earnings on Thursday along with Amazon. So this is one of those stocks that I do not suspect we're going to see a massive drop like we've seen. We've already seen sympathy drops because of tech. I actually think earnings is going to push us back up over this 223 level. I think we're going to get back above Kijinsen, back above the Gann level. If we take a look at the weekly, we're still closing above Tenkan-sen on the weekly. We're still finding support with wicks rejecting off the bottom of this cloud. So you could see like next week, you know, I don't know if we're going to get back into this fib channel, but we could get back up to 225, to maybe even 230, and then come back down to 225 and then chug along inside of this fib channel. That's kind of what I would suspect to happen with Apple. I do not think Apple is going to take quite the hit that these other guys took, partially because I think Wall Street feels that Apple is going to have a strong second half and a really good year next year, so they want to keep their positions open. But yeah, I do see that this 213 level is a major level here. You can see we found bottom here. This was a resistance turn support. So right around this 212 level, we're sitting at 217. Really, that's not, you know, like your downside is pretty limited, I think, with Apple. Speaking of companies that have earnings, Microsoft has earnings on Tuesday. Here's another company that I think could go either way, but I do think the downside is very limited because you have this Fibonacci channel, which we're just at the bottom of right now, sitting in it. We rejected off of, and the arc. So 417, 420, you know, that's only, what is that? From here, that's like a drop of 2%. So, yeah, I don't know. Even though these last 3 weeks have been really ugly, I think Microsoft is going to be fine. Could be wrong, but we rejected off this. We'll have to see how things go on Monday, but I kind of am expecting a stronger close and hopefully a close above 440. That would kind of confirm a lot because this has been a strong support and resistance zone, 440 level. So Microsoft's looking, even though it closed under Kijinsen, we just have these other supports down here that I think are going to do good for us. And let's take a look at the daily here. So we closed back inside the cloud. Weren't able to close back above this fib level, this fib channel that I've drawn. But yeah, we had, see this right here? This is actually a bullish pattern. You have basically even floors here. We closed all the way down. We didn't go any lower. We popped back up. It's a bullish harami. So yeah, my gut tells me Microsoft's going to have a good week next week. That's what my gut tells me. Meta. Closing above this fib channel on the daily. Let's take a look at the weekly. Rejecting off the Gann angle. Closing above Kijinsen. So here's another one where, you know, it traded down really hard and it doesn't even have earnings yet. It was all because of Google. That's because they were both in the telecom communications. So Meta might be, you know, it's kind of like an opportunity to buy it after an earnings sell-off. Before the earnings happen, you could have a full-on recovery back up into the arc or even back above this. I don't know really where this thing would go. I mean, could we see a return down here? And I'd be freaking shocked if we came all the way down here and lost 8%. Like, really think that's going to happen? And the Gann angle is only 2% down. Excuse me. So, you know, if we were to break back above, that's 20%. So I like Meta's setup. I think Meta sold off the last 2 earnings in a row. They sold off. Here's an earnings. They sold off. Oh, okay. I guess this earnings they popped, but I feel like they had an earnings off. So yeah, I don't think we're gonna sell off on earnings again, especially since what really changed? That's another thing. What really changed between this earnings and last earnings? You know, they actually had an earnings beat, and it sold off because of their capex. Well, they already know that they're going to be spending money on AI. What are they going to say? Yeah, we're still spending money on AI. Is it going to drop even more? I mean, that would just not make sense. Like the people that sold because they're spending money on AI, I feel like they already did it. So, and they aren't going to sell off again for the same reason. They would have done it. They would have done it right here, which they kind of did, I guess. But I feel like the selling is over on this name. That's just what my gut tells me. So yeah, Meta holding Meta. Amazon. Here's another name that, you know, we're really just not breaking below 175 level, and actually we're closing, you know, at this 180, 8250 where we closed. But we have a lot of support underneath at like 177. So, and it was looking so strong. We've been in this trading range forever. And I think Amazon's going to have some strong earnings, despite the fact that, you know, they're in the consumer area. Like, I just think they're going to remain strong. That's not to say we'll chop around and not get above this 200 until like Q4. But I have half a position still. I played this name really well, thankfully. Like I pulled some profits out of here when I saw it kind of turning over and losing steam at the arc. And then I picked my shares back up here. So I'm holding my half position, and I'm just going to have the wait and see approach going into earnings. I don't think I'm going to be grabbing more shares because, you know, if one of the other names, Apple, Microsoft, Meta, if they sell off on earnings, I'm going to want to buy that low as opposed to like betting that this is going to pop. So that's kind of how I'm playing. Google, obviously we know what happened with Google. It's in what I consider my buy zone because you have all this support right here. I don't think that there's a whole lot more downside in the game. So it does look attractive. However, Google's just one of those companies, I've said it before, I just don't trust them. I just don't trust them to take AI seriously. And I don't, you know, I don't know. I don't feel good. Also, their moat is shrinking. ChatGPT is coming after them. You know, this company will be around 10 years from now, but like, is it going to be a Mag 7 stock? There's a question mark. And because there's a question mark, I'd just rather look for opportunities elsewhere. But yeah, this one closed down really bad. You know, if you're bullish Google, you know, this is a great buying opportunity, but I just don't, I think there's a great chance this is dead money for the foreseeable future. All right, we're going to take a look at some of the other big dogs like Eli Lilly, which closed right above the weekly Kijun-sen. I do think that this is bottom here. I think we're going to see a green candle with a like that other formation that we saw, like just going to push it. I think we're going to get pushed right back above 850, and we're going to just tug along. That's what I think is going to happen because their earnings, I mean, how have their earnings gone the last few? Even when they didn't beat, it went up, you know? So we've already had this big sell-off. Like, is earnings really going to cause this name to sell off more? I don't know. I just don't think so. And if it does, we got the top of the arc. That's about 7% lower. You know, this might be a name to watch. You know, if you don't have a position in Eli Lilly and you've watched just the incredible run it's been on, you know, if they, for instance, if they beat on earnings and it sells off and it hits this arc and we see some good, you know, support level being drawn out there, I might consider adding to my position for the long run. Costco's another big dog name that's been having some trouble. We got to close under, this was our sell signal right here, and now we look to be heading to, let's see how this, extend this to the left. This fib channel is what we're in now. We could hold up, who knows, next week we could have a push higher and just stay in the top half of this fib channel and then continue chugging along. But we also could come down to 790, 786. You know, this 786 right here, look at this, 787. That's a strong support level. So 787 would be the next level of support. You got weekly Kijun-sen, you got that, and I bet if we go to the daily, I bet the bottom of the cloud is right there. So yeah, I like this 787 level. I already have a full position on, but that would be the key level to that I think it wants to test before being able to move higher. what a drop, right, guys? I mean, from here down to here, that's 12%. So too bad for Costco. But their hot dogs sure are good. Visa's another really interesting name. Really interesting name. If I get an opportunity to buy it down here at 246, like, wow. I mean, their earnings were, they had a revenue miss, I guess. But this name normally just, it basically follows the S&P, like performs as well as the S&P, sometimes outperforming. So when you have, I actually want to take a look at a chart of Visa and the S&P and see how big the divergence point. Okay, and so what we have here is a yearly chart. I'm actually going to back it up to the bottom. Look at that. Huge divergence. That never happens. Almost never happens. S&P going up, Visa going down. Last time that happened was right here. Let's see what would have happened if you would have bought right there. You would have had years of outperformance of the S&P 500. So, yeah, if I get an opportunity to buy up Visa at like 246 or even 250, I'll probably just pull the trigger because it ain't going lower than that. And we had a full fallout of this angle, which is really sad to see, and kind of unexpected. Yeah, we might see a downtrend hit the 250 level. At that point, I would be considering picking up shares of Visa. Netflix has been kind of floundering since earnings. We're in a downtrend. You can see. Let's go to the weekly. Oh, look at that. Very interesting. You have a weekly rejection off the Kijinsen and this angle. So I do like what I'm seeing with Netflix. I think the bottom's in on this one, would be my guess. And we might see a continued push higher. Netflix, let's see how their earnings went. They had an earnings beat, revenue beat, and they traded down because big tech traded down. I think it's that simple. We closed below, like, it looks like 625 for right in here. It looks like we closed above some of this price action as well. Let's take a look at the Heikinashi candles just to see. And let's go to the daily. All right, you can see that the downtrend is not a strong one. It is a downtrend, but if we start seeing some green candles appear, that would be a good sign. Obviously, like on the weekly, that would be an even better sign. Especially if we see see these Heikinashi candles, how it's big, and then a smaller one, still no upper wick, but you have a double bottom appearing here, and then you get a green one. That is what I'm looking for. A smaller red one, and then a green one. And to me, that would be, especially if we close like a weekly candle over the Tenkan-sen, that would confirm that the uptrend can continue, and we may be able to push through. So Netflix is looking okay. Spotify is an interesting one. I think this should be an honorary big tech stock. And obviously on the Heikinashis, we had our green candle here. And if we look at the daily, usually there was a big pop on earnings. We came back down to here. Actually, I predict that we'll stay above the Tenkan-sen and continue an uptrend. And actually, we're quite close to the Tenkan-sen and the Kijinsen. They're both very interesting, both very close to each other. Let's see if I can spread these apart. Very interesting. We may come down, tap 316, although, yeah, we may tap 316. I might buy there and put a tight stop loss right below the cloud. It'll only be like a 2-3% stop loss. I've been meaning to get a position into Spotify. I think that this is going to be up there with like Netflix and some of these tech names. Spotify is going to be around a long time. I don't think Amazon Music is ever going to take them out. I think Spotify is here to stay. Things are looking really iffy with Spotify, you can see we had this just monster run, and things were starting to turn over, and then it just popped. And typically after earnings, you'll see people sell. But if there's a big pop like this, that typically means it's the beginning of an uptrend. It's just all about, you know, can I get it in a better entry? And so we might see like a tap of 317 tomorrow. I might even put in a buy order, right? This out of buy. Call it. We'll call it 318. And I'll probably start a position there if I can get it at that price. Cool. Spotify looks nice. GE. Okay, let's get into the industrials because this is very interesting. So GE also had an incredible earnings, and then a big sell-off, and now we're right back above Tenkan on the daily. Beautiful. So I believe that you're going to see some strong action from GE. Especially, let's back it up. I want to show you on the monthly. Back this up. Look how high we could go. This name has been floundering in this area, and now we closed multiple months above this high right here. The next level for it, like 201. 19%. I mean, wow. Wow. And yeah, this name has been crushing it. I think industrials are going to do well in the second half of this year, probably into next year. So we could see continued strength out of this name. We already had, like, you know, this area right here. I bet if I drew a GAN box, there was probably some level of resistance that turned into support. So your downside risk, I think, is really very limited. I mean, yeah, that's like 12%, but this is a monthly chart, right, guys? And if I go to Heikinashi candles, all green all day. So love what I'm seeing out of GE. Lockheed Martin's another name that did really good. To go back to the weekly on this bad boy. So you can see we had a huge candle there. Yeah, this name continues to just crush it. Also, what if World War III is coming, guys? Lockheed Martin's going to do great. None of us will be doing great, but if you invest in Lockheed Martin, that would be a bright spot. Boeing's another name that is really interesting to me right now because all the other names in its sector are doing really good, and I feel like the only thing holding this thing back is what happened earlier this year and later last year with their planes doors flying off. But we might be getting to that point where it's forgotten about enough, and we're not seeing videos all the time, and we could see us push up to the cloud or something. I mean, there could be finally the day that Boeing does good, and it's had some good price action in the last week. Take a look at the Heikinashi candles here. So we do have, you know, this big downtrend line and then some indecision. So I don't know if I'm ready to invest in Boeing, you know, just based on what happened. But you know, if you're a Boeing stan, you're wondering, like, is it going to turn around? Like, we do see, you know, signs of life out of this. Okay, now's the time that we're going to go into earnings here. And hey, if you're still with me this far in, we're 45 minutes in, most of you guys don't watch this far. If you could hit me with that like button, it would mean so much to me. And if there's a stock I haven't gone over that you want me to take a look at, please comment below, let me know. Also, you know, is there a certain name that you think is going to crush earnings, that you're going to be holding through earnings? Comment that below as well. I'd like to know that stuff so I can take a look at it and, you know, maybe add a little bit. Okay, next week we got some big dogs. We got Microsoft. We got McDonald's. We got onsemi. We got marijuana, Tilray. Tuesday is going to be the big one. We got SOFI and PayPal. We also have Pfizer, which has been kind of coming back to life. AMD is after the close. Microsoft is after the close. Starbucks, Arista Networks. So Tuesday is going to be a big, big day. Wednesday, we got Boeing. So if you want to play that through earnings, be my guest. I don't know if I'm going to play that through earnings. Wingstop, which could fall out of the sky. Generac, which we're going to take a look at Generac. This is a very good value play that I think that's also an industrial that I think has limited downside and a lot of upside. Then we got Meta after close, Lam Research, a semiconductor name, Carvana. Thursday we have Amazon, Apple, Intel, Coinbase, Block, and Block. If you want to invest in Block, take attention to what happens with PayPal and potentially SoFi. If they both do good, you might see Block start to trade up into earnings. And then Friday, we got some energy names. So I have a few names that I want to take a look at of this. First, we're going to start with Generac. So Generac they make generators. A buddy of mine actually works at Generac. And I do have Heikin-Ashi candles up right now. You can see we're in an uptrend. And if I go to the regular candles, you can see we're above Tenkan-sen. So, and we've been in a healthy uptrend since April. So I do like this. And take a look at where it could go. Take a look at where it could go. We're above the cloud. Cloud turned bullish recently. I might pick up like a half a position going into earnings. That actually sounds really good. Let me look at a daily quick. Let's see. Oh yeah, the daily just closed above Tenkan-sen. So it's close to the Tenkan-sen on the daily. I like this a lot. I like it a lot. So yeah, Generac, when is that? That is on Wednesday before the open. Before the open. Another name that is going to have earnings is Coinbase. Coinbase has been in a range for a long time now. A really long time now. Let's draw a little square here. But we've been in a 31% range. This is a tough one, right? And we're right in the center of it. So I don't know if this would be something I would hold through earnings. You know what I mean? Because even if the name pops, let's say that oh shoot, I should have bought it before earnings, and it pops up to 290. In all likelihood, it will come back down to test this 283 range, and you'll be able to pick up shares there, and then ride the uptrend. But if it breaks to the bottom of the range, I mean, look at that. Look at the drop you could experience. That's 18%. I mean, that's a scary name. I'm not really a Coinbase guy myself. I have a Coinbase account for my Bitcoin. All right. Lam Research falling out of the sky, but we have a support level down here, you guys. Let's take a look at the weekly. Woof. We might have some support at 860 if earnings are bad, but it could take us all the way down to 762. Now, some of the other names in their sector, in their class, did well last week. I'm going to draw a Gann box on this real quick. Okay, so this Gann box looks pretty clean. Everything looks to be in order. Let's take a look at some of this stuff. So, okay, yeah, 850. Lam at 850. I would almost have to pick up some shares. it did find some support at the top of the arc, and earnings could potentially push it right back up to this level here of 1,000. However, I wouldn't be buying in hopes of that. And you know, even if you did enter a position, you got a 5% of downside with, you know, those support levels there. It's hard for me to buy a name that looks like this, though. You know, falling knife situation. But 850, that looks to be a pretty strong support level. So I'd be looking for reversal candles appearing in this area right here if it were to drop. So interesting name in Lamb. What other name should we look at? Let's just look at Arista Networks. I really like Arista. I had shares and then like didn't look like it was gonna my position was gonna turn against me, and so I was like, I don't know about this. Draw a GAN on this bad boy too. All right, so this GAN goes back to the COVID crash. Let's zoom in a little bit here. We did have a candle that closed under our GAN level here, so I would not be entering. You know, earnings could send this thing back down to the GAN angle at 270, which I would buy there. Or, you know, it could push us right into the arc, potentially up to $400. So we'll just have to wait and see on this name. You know, obviously the Ichimoku don't look too good on the weekly. On the daily, we have some support on the top of the cloud, like some support. So earnings is really going to determine what happens with this name, and I think that there's a lot of downside and upside on this. So this is not something I probably wouldn't even hold this into earnings, to be honest. And I definitely wouldn't buy this name going into earnings. Before I go, let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been looking pretty good. We're, you know, in a positive Ichimoku. We had, you know, the daily is sitting right around 68,000. So we pushed over this 66,000 level. You know, we came down, tested it, and then popped right back up. And yeah, so like this looks really bullish to me. I do think Bitcoin's going to have a really good second half. You know, the halving finally going to set in, you know, like the whole effect of that. So I do like what I'm seeing with Bitcoin. You know, if we can break these highs, then, you know, 76,000 is like the big one. And then after that, it could be blue skies to 90. So I do like Bitcoin. I picked up some more this. Ethereum, on the other hand, has been like looking a little soft, especially, you know, it's so funny when these ETFs come out, you think like, oh, now it's going to pump, and then, nope, don't. So we're below the cloud, below the Tenkan-sen on the daily. On the weekly, close below Tenkan-sen. So we might be in a holding range here. We might even come back down to retest 3,000. Which is not good news to holders of Ethereum. Yeah, we got bigger volume than these two greens. Yeah, so like this bounce was on lower volume than that's the week prior to the bounce, and lower than the current week of selling. So not great. But yeah, Ethereum is like kind of in an indecision area. I want to go to a one-day chart, do a Heikinashi, and just see. Yeah, so we're kind of just in a range between Tenkan. XRP has been looking really strong. It looks like it's basing out. Look at regular candles here. So we closed above Tenkan-sen, and we've been rejecting off Tenkan-sen. You can see that boom, 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 projecting off Tenkan. So this is Honestly, not a bad place to add more, just because your downside, I mean, you could set a stop loss. Set a stop loss like right here, or even right here. That's 5%. And crypto's crypto, so it could go much higher. So yeah, I like what I'm seeing. It's holding Tenkinson really strong. It's got some tight price action. So I like XRP going into the next week. Let's actually take a look at a week. Okay, so that's what's going on. It's trying to break out of the cloud. It remained green. And yeah, we got good Heikinashi candles. So if we get a break over this, we could break, that could cause us to break over this previous high of like 40, 41. What is this? XRP. Oh my goodness. Hold on. Okay, so 78 cents. I mean, that's on the table, so that's cool. Yeah, I like XRP going into the next week. Take a look at Dogecoin. Dogecoin, back up. Okay. Good job, Dogecoin. So it closed above the Gann level and the Gann angle. That's awesome. Let's take a look how the candle actually closed. So we rejected off the arc though, but there was a lot of price rejection down here. So, the next week, even if we go flat, then we're out of the arc. Then we can move higher. So Dogecoin made a decent recovery. And then finally, Solana. Solana looks strong once again. I like this chart. We did have a bit of a, retest and then a close at the same level. But if crypto overall can have a strong week next week, I suspect Solana is going to try to get through the arc, try to get to $234. That's kind of a good price target. All right, you guys, it's almost been an hour. If you're still with me and you're not subscribed, you should. I do a weekly recap every week. I do a daily recap almost every single day if I can get away with it. And I do technical analysis like what you've seen on all of these names, all the major names, and I have been trying to introduce some more macroeconomic stuff into my videos. So if you could hit me with that like, you could comment below what you would like me to cover on my next video. I'm always interested in your video ideas. And thank you so much for watching this far in if you're still watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Risky Ryan out.